Hi, everyone. Welcome to our table talk. We're here with Pastor John.
Welcome back, Pastor Bill.
Right. It's good to be back.
Yes.
And it's fun to be involved in this journey of discipleship. Jesus is leading us to really dig in.
Yes.
And there's been some challenging topics.
Yes.
Last week was anger.
Murder, anger, yeah.
And this week, sex.
Yeah, adultery, yeah.
That's a heavy one.
Yeah, it's funny, for anyone who's like, it's every generation hears that the Bible is boring or the Bible's not relevant. And it's so real. I was watching a really famous feminist actually this morning who's just publicly come out, a feminist scholar, and she's just become a Christian. And she said, as I have studied for the last 10 years or 15 years, the Judeo-Christian worldview, I've realized it is the best flourishing thing for women. And she says, I've arrived that it is sociologically true, so it might be supernaturally true.
Wow.
And as I was listening to this very profound thinker, I was like, right. Because here's the truth. Since Adam and Eve, right? And Lucas talked about it last week, Cain and Abel, but this sin is just as old. Mm-hmm. And, there's two extremes to this. Churches either shy away or they make sex weird and bad and awful, and they almost set it up in this, it's a sinful thing, or there's no responsibility at all. And yet here's this woman who's just become our sister, and she's like, it's just better to follow it like this. Mm-hmm. And we all know that adultery always leads to profound brokenness. Mm-hmm. And yet for some reason, every generation thinks it's probably not as bad as it is.
Right. And it comes out of the law, which to us feels a little strict. Yeah. And yet it's something beautiful.
Yeah. When we did a 10 Commandments series years ago, I just kept saying to our people, the law, right, shows us our sin, shows us who God is, and then allows us to, walk in freedom after we get grace. But I love how J.I. Packer says, they're life-giving laws.
Right.
They're just life-giving laws. And I think if we can be honest, so much of what Jesus is confronting is not just motive, it's confronting selfishness. Because Jesus is the ultimate servant. And, as we've talked about here, the spiritual discipline of service is when you experience little deaths to yourself. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the deep motivations for us as Christians, to be like Christ.
Right, mm-hmm. Right. And on that journey, we realize that a chunk of our issues with sex flow out of our covetousness.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about what Jesus does, where if you read the 10 Commandments well, basically the reason why coveting or jealousy or envy, all those is the last thing, is because that's the ground for all the other problems. Mm-hmm. You lie because you tend to want something, or you want to cover something, you murder. So yeah, I think, again, this is so important because as Christians, we realize every person is made in the image of God. So that's our starting point. And then if there are married people, actually they are, I don't mean own, possessed like slavery but the Bible says that, husbands and wives own each other, they're together. And so it's theft. It's theft to take someone that's not yours. Mm-hmm. Even if they say yes, it's theft. Mm-hmm. And so coveting is always the root. And again, as I was saying, in this era of online pornography and dating apps, and even there's a very famous dating app that's just made for married people to commit adultery. I mean, that's what exists. And then of course with AI and sex robots and all this is coming, we just have to come to the place where you can probably have any experience you want, but it will not lead to life, it will lead to death. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so out of that, we need to learn to be aware of what's going on in our mind, because Jesus takes it from the superficial into our thought life.
Yeah, and that's why I said at the end, it's really important that we're honest with God and each other, safe people, because some Christians are not safe. Mm-hmm. But we have to be honest about what we're tempted by and what we've done. And so, a lot of people are ashamed to even talk about temptation. Mm-hmm. And this is such a devastating thing. Mm-hmm. Because all sorts of us are tempted by all sorts of things that we do struggle with and we don't struggle with. Mm-hmm. right? So if the evil one's really involved, he's going to ask us to do things that we would consider profoundly gross or disgusting. And he'll say, see, you thought that, so you have to be that. And then you end up in this gross place of shame, right? You never want to talk about that. Or we have inclinations one way or another with all sorts of things, sexually in multiple directions, but also with lust or greed or pride or, gluttony or whatever. So I just think, like, we have to say to fellow Christians, I haven't even committed this sin. But you need to know my sinful struggle ebbs this way.
Right.
And if I can say this, when you hear that, don't go, oh, or that's so gross, or you just go, oh, thanks that you didn't trust me with that. And by the way, you know where my direction is? It's this way. And it's just like when we come into the light, suddenly there's no place for things to grow.
Right.
There's no place for weeds to grow, right? There's no place for the evil one to grow. And it's the same thing with confession. I said this 2 weeks ago when I was preaching live at Ajax. So many Christians are still hidden though they've confessed because they only talk about it. They talk in a generalized way. It's like, well, just admit what you've done. And some people, I didn't say this in the sermon, but some people are like, John, I've literally seen this so many times. Well, I can't say that because if it really comes out what I've done, it will be devastating to my spouse or my kids. And I'm like, you don't have the right to hide that. You don't get to be the arbiter of how they deal with life because of what you've done. Freedom is when you're honest. Consequences may be bad for a period of time, but ultimately there's forgiveness. I just sense, Bill, that there's an invitation by Jesus to our church, and I would not say this if I didn't mean this in real time. I think the Lord is inviting our church to be holy, 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 not just holy. And it's, like just honest about temptation, honest about sin, honest about what we've done. I've been struck, even in the last 3 weeks I've been preaching around North America, how many people said, I've never talked about this, but when I was 5, when I was 10, when I was 21, this thing happened. And but I'm like, it still haunts you. Just say it. And hear the words of 1 John, right? 1, all unrighteousness is forgiven.
And the promise of 1 John becomes a sword we can use against the devil when he's causing us to think and feel shameful.
100%. And I also want to just say, as we come to an end, I know there is real pain because there are people watching this. Your spouse committed adultery on you. You're about to find out that's true. Like, this is not just like, well, I hope that works. Great table talk. Like, forgiveness takes time. We're going to talk about divorce and remarriage next week. But just the starting point is you can never be reconciled if you're hidden. And the other thing is, when you realize how much the Lord has forgiven you, your measure of forgiving others will grow. Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that, but that's at least our starting point.
Right. So that gives us fruitful grounds for discussion in the groups.
Yeah.
It's also a reminder in the groups that we need to be confidential. And we need to build that unity where we can really trust one another.
Yeah, and you don't have to share if you don't want to. If you can, great. But we just want to encourage, ask the Lord, why is he inviting our church into a time of non-hiddenness? That should be the great question.
Okay, great. Much to discuss. We ask the Lord to bless you as you meet together.